Here's every major file and Rasp explained and exactly what each one is for. Start with cut grade, because it is printed on every file you will ever buy and it governs everything else. American pattern files have 3 standard grades: bastard cut, which is coarse, second cut, which is medium, and smooth cut, which is fine. That naming is not an accident of language. It was standardized by the Nicholson File Company, founded in 1864 by a man who built the first machine that could cut a file consistently, and the vocabulary stuck. Bastard is the coarse working grade, the one that takes metal off fast. Second cut is 1 step finer and still removes stock quickly, but leaves a surface you can live with. Smooth is for finishing and for the pass before you reach for abrasive paper. The grade is not an absolute, it is relative to the length of the file, so a bastard cut on a 6-inch file has finer teeth than a bastard cut on a 14-inch file. Now the tooth pattern, which is a separate decision. A single cut file has 1 set of parallel diagonal rows running across the face. A double cut has a second set crossing the first at an opposing angle, which breaks the row into thousands of individual points. Double cut removes metal faster and leaves a rougher surface. Single cut cuts slower and leaves a finish. So the 2 choices form a grid: bastard double cut to hog material, smooth single cut to finish, flat file. The general purpose file, rectangular in section, tapering slightly toward the point, teeth on both faces and both edges. It lives in the drawer and handles most jobs, which is exactly why it is the wrong file more often than any other. On an inside corner, both edges are cutting and one of them is eating a surface you did not want touched. Hand file. It looks like a flat file and it is not. A hand file is parallel in width instead of tapered and one edge is uncut. That edge has a name worth knowing: the safe edge. Lay it against a shoulder you must not touch, and the file works the floor of the cut without eating the wall. If yours still marks the shoulder, polish that edge on a stone until it is genuinely dead. Mill file. Single cut, thin, usually with rounded edges, and the workhorse of sharpening. It is what goes on a lawnmower blade, an axe, a scraper, a shovel. The single cut is the point. It shears a clean edge rather than tearing one, and a torn edge on a blade goes dull in an afternoon. Half-round file, flat on one face, curved on the other, and it is 2 tools. The flat side works a flat surface, the curved side works the inside of a curve, and the radius it can reach is set by the curvature of the file, so a wide, gentle half-round will not get into a tight arc, no matter how you angle it. Round file. Also called a rat tail, circular in section tapering to a point, and it exists to enlarge a hole or to clean up an inside curve tighter than any half-round can reach. The taper is the useful part. Slide it further through the hole and you are working with a bigger diameter. Triangular file. 3 flat faces, 60 degrees between them. It is the file for a sharp inside corner and for anything with a V in it, which is why it turns up in saw sharpening. Those 60-degree faces match the gullet angle of a handsaw tooth, and one pass sets both the back of one tooth and the front of the next. Square file. 4 flat faces. Squaring out a rectangular opening, cleaning a keyway, working a slot. It sounds like a triangular file's cousin, and it is not interchangeable. Put a triangular file in a square slot and you round the corners you are trying to define. Needle file. The same shapes, shrunk, with a long plain shank instead of a tang for a handle. Flat, half-round, round, square, triangular, all of it, in a set. These are for work you can hold in your fingers: jewelry, model making, cleaning up a small casting, adjusting a part that has to fit inside another part. This is also where the Swiss makers earn their reputation, with chrome steel hardened to 66 on the Rockwell C scale. Pressure is your enemy here. They snap. Riffler, a file bent into a shape, double-ended, plain grip in the middle, a curved or hooked cutting profile at each end. It exists for the surface no straight tool can reach. Carvers use them inside a hollow, mold makers in a corner. Chainsaw file. A round file with a job so specific it gets its own name. The size must match the chain, not the saw. 5/32 for 3/8 low profile and 1/4 inch pitch. Up through 3/16 to 7/32 for the larger pitches. Wrong diameter, and you either miss the cutting edge or file the tooth away from underneath. Look it up on the chain rather than guessing. Wood rasp. This is where files stop and rasps begin. And the difference is not fineness, it is the teeth. A file has continuous rows of cutting edges. A rasp has individual raised teeth, punched one at a time, each one standing proud with a gap around it. That gap is the point. Wood produces a shaving, not a filing, and the shaving needs somewhere to go. Run a file on wood and it clogs solid in 3 strokes. Cabinet rasp. The refined version, and the one worth spending money on. The distinction is hand-stitched against machine cut. A machine cut rasp has its teeth in perfect rows, and perfect rows chatter and leave parallel scratch lines you then have to sand out. A hand-stitched rasp has each tooth raised individually by a person, so the pattern is slightly irregular. Irregular means no repeating scratch, so it cuts faster and leaves a smoother surface than a machine rasp of the same coarseness. The French house of Oriou has been punching them by hand since 1856 and is still the name people cite. Hand-stitched rasps are graded by grain number instead of by cut. Low number coarse, high number fine. Grain 7 is a coarse shaping rasp. Grain 10 is the common cabinet grade. Grain 15 is for the last pass before you touch abrasive. One technique worth the 30 seconds it takes to learn. Draw filing. Instead of pushing the file along its length, you grip it at both ends, lay it across the work at 90 degrees, and run it sideways along the edge. Held square like that, the teeth cut in both directions of travel, and the finish is finer than anything straight filing will give you. Use a single cut file for it. A double cut held sideways leaves fine ridges. And before any of that, the handle. Never use a file without one, and never with a loose one. The tang is a bare spike. And when the file catches and stops, your hand does not. It is the oldest injury in the workshop, and it is entirely avoidable. 2 rules for every one of these. First, a file cuts on the push stroke only. The teeth point toward the tip, and dragging them backward under pressure rolls the edges over. This single mistake is why a new file stops cutting in a week instead of a year. Lift on the return. Second, keep the teeth clear. Filings pack into the gullets and weld themselves in place, which is called pinning, and a pinned file stops cutting and starts scratching your work. A file card clears it. Draw the card across the face in the direction the teeth lie, never across them, because pulling wire bristles against the teeth bends them and finishes the file for good. And if you only buy 2, buy a second cut half-round file and a hand-stitched cabinet rasp. Between them, they cover flat, curved metal and wood. And everything after that is a refinement.